Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Howdy, y'all. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on part of the world you're in. Red OLaughlin here on the Talking Heads part of the USA Global TV and Radio Network. And today, a major uptick for me in my technology improvement program is that I'm having this not only streamed on StreamYard and live on YouTube and other places on the USA Global TV and Radio Network, but thanks to Dr. Jacqueline's help last night, I was able to have this broadcast live, concurrently broadcast on my Red OLaughlin author page on Facebook, and hopefully on my personal page too. So we'll see how LinkedIn and YouTube and the other ones work down the road. But let's get this one mastered first, and then to continue on. But today we're talking about a new topic, pain. But before I get to pain, let me get my slides set up. It just makes it a little bit easier to talk about this so we keep everything consistent and in order. We're talking about pain, its causes, control, methodologies, processes, a lot of things dealing with it. So first, disclaimer, I'm a researcher. I am not a doctor, never have been. I don't sell anything. I'm not in the pharmaceutical industry, never have been. I provide, number one, awareness. And I look at what goes on in the human body at the cellular level, chemically speaking. I look for cause and effect relationships. Treat a cause, fix a problem. Treat symptoms, and you'll always be treating symptoms because they don't address the cause of the problem. I didn't change my slide, but it says weight is individual in most cases. Well, let's just assume that for right now, pain is individual in most cases, and there's a lot of confusion out there with regard to what does and doesn't work. So let me get into the next one and talk about what are we going to be talking about. Well, today is kind of an introductory one. 30,000 foot level, we're going to dive down a couple of places there where we're almost touching the ground, but I want to look at what is pain, what do we know about it, but eventually we're going to get into a lot more detail into the causes of pain, because if you know a cause, you can fix a problem most of the time. We'll look at some conventional medicines and approaches, but I'm not a whole lot in that area. It's there's a lot of doctors out there. That's what they do for a living. Go see them when you need that. But there are some natural remedies and things that we'll talk about. EFT is one that works very, very well with pain, emotional freedom techniques. Self-hypnosis is another one. But there's a lot of things out there. But we're going to look at pain. How do we perceive it? How do we process it? Because that's the part I think that's really most interesting. I've been pretty pain-free most of my life. There have been times when things hurt here, there, and yonder, and it's not something that lasts a long time. I can remember walking from the parking lot into the doctor's offices or the medical center to get a transfusion when I had COVID, and one of the symptoms of COVID, or side effects, whatever, was the fact of large joint pain. I'd never had large joint pain, but in crossing that street, I was amazed at how much my joints, particularly my hip joints, were screaming. And it was just, oh, that's a new one for me. But over time, I've been involved with different companies before I got involved with researching the human body. And one of the companies sold a particular drink, and that drink had a 40 some odd xanthones in it. These are individual classes of molecules. And one of the xanthones was a gamma mangostin xanthone. And it at that time, and I did a lot of research on this for a number of years, it was the only molecule that could stop pain literally at the cellular level before it went anywhere. We're talking about the cyclooxygenase 1 and 2 enzymes in the body that are there. And I'm going to talk a lot more in detail about this down the road, but that was my very first episode of, hey, things aren't as bad as you. There are things out there that you can fix yourself. And that was one of them. And it worked well with headaches. It worked well with a lot of individual pain issues, whether it was a joint issue or something else. But that particular xanthone just opened my world of, wow. EFT, I mentioned that a minute ago, emotional freedom techniques. There are people that have had decades of lower back problems, trauma from who knows what, and they undergo that for a period of time. And we'll talk about that in detail. But EFT is a very, very good methodology for doing that. Several years ago, I was sitting in a sauna at the gym. We're talking back and forth. One of the guys in there, 45, 50-year-old black guy, about 6'4", 6'5" guy, a little bit overweight, maybe 30, 40 pounds. But he loved basketball. His kids were getting up where they were getting pretty good. And he couldn't do it because his knees hurt. And I said, well, have you heard of undenatured type 2 chicken collagen? I explained what it was, how it get derived, and what it really does in the body. So he went out and bought some. I saw him a couple of days later. I said, did you do it? He said, oh, yeah, I'm taking it. And literally, I said, don't expect anything for 3 months because that's generally what happens in the body. It takes minimally 21, 30 days. But realistically, you're taking something, plan on 3 months. Some things you don't want to wait 3 months. If something's bothering you and it's there 10 days in a row, go see a doctor. If it's not there 10 days in a row and you're trying to fix something, give yourself 3 weeks. 3 weeks to 3 months is probably realistic. Well, I'd see him periodically, and then one day I had to ask him. He was coming back in. He had a basketball, and I said, "How are the knees?" He says, "They have never been better in my life." That one thing fixed his osteoarthritis in his knees like nobody's business. I've had other occasions where I've caught my arm in something, finger, whatever, and hurt, and whether it's blisters, lots of things I've done with the kinds of things that we're going to be talking about. And sometimes I get a lower back strain where I reach down to pick up something. Oh, I can't believe it hurts. But when you're stretching a muscle, most people try to stretch in the direction of the muscle because that's what they've always been told. But if you actually put back pressure on the direction you want to go in and you push in that opposite direction with something holding it in place, you actually get a far better stretch, and the perception of pain minimizes, in some cases totally mitigated very, very quickly. So there's lots of individual things that I've experienced myself, plus what I've read about, plus what other people have said. And we'll get into some of these things, into the true chemical reason. Why are these things happening? But let's get into the pain. What is pain? It's basically an unpleasant signal that something in your body hurts. It could be a tooth, it could be the ear, it could be your eye, it could be your head, a joint, a stomach, a toe. It could be anything, but something hurts. And our system tells our brain that it hurts. And the same thing that hurts one person may not hurt another. The same injury that somebody gets may not result in the same level of pain. We perceive things differently. Pain can be noticeable. It can be non-existent. It can be horrendous. The exact same pain. And so everybody, as I said in the first slide, there's confusion out there about what is there because we're all individual. Sometimes that pain can be sharp, dull, it can be continuous, or it comes and goes. Lots of things work. But just because it works well for this person does not guarantee that it was going to work well for another. But if you don't try it, and you don't try it for a long enough period of time, it's like when I do EFT, emotional freedom techniques, that's where you're doing the tapping of the eyes and you have a certain mantra you're saying. To me, I have to do a minimum of 8 minutes. If I do a 4-minute one, I might as well waste my time. But if I spend my time on whatever aspect that I'm trying to address, for me, I found that 8 minutes is my minimum time. So I do minimum 8. I'll set my watch on my clock or my watch, and 8 minutes. Okay, then let me go a couple extra ones just to make sure I get past that. But sometimes there's a certain amount of time that has to be devoted to what you're doing. And this may be breathing and maybe a number of other things. But anyway, so pain. Pain can appear anywhere in the body. We have toothaches, headaches, sore throats. stomach aches, cramps, muscle aches. We can have cuts, burns, abrasions, fractures. You have basically the doctors break down pain into a number of different areas. The location is in your shoulder. How does it radiate outward? What caused it to start? There's some temporal patterns. We'll talk about those. How intense it is. There's a lot of issues that when they define pain, there's a certain thing that doctor, if they send their report over to somebody else, they understand exactly even though they're going to ask you the same questions, they understand the definition of the pain you have based on these little categories of how do they define that pain. Now, sometimes our pain is caused by our posture. If we're sitting poorly forever and we're hunched over and all of a sudden we try to sit up and then our back hurts, our lower back. Yeah, posture is a big deal. You sit on an airplane long enough, you're going to have a problem. You sit on the toilet long enough, you're going to have a problem. Sitting is a bad place to be, but also standing for a long period of time. Our bodies are not meant to be in a rigid position, but posture is a major cause of pain. So if that's something in your job and you're sitting there and you're constantly doing something, we used to talk about carpal tunnel syndrome. When people were typing in typing pools way back when, you had full extension of the fingers that in the muscles in the arms actually activated everything. When you went to the computer, now you're just barely tapping things. You end up with these little hot spots in the muscles that cause no pain, but they manifest themselves as a wrist problem in carpal tunnel because we're not getting that full range of motion that we used to see. So sometimes you end up with a muscle imbalance. Sometimes we have muscle pulls. I mean, I can remember taking out bags of fertilizer in the car, in the trunk, and you lift it out, okay, fine, 40 pounds, boom, boom, boom. And then all of a sudden you reach in and just happen to catch your turn the wrong way. And oh my God, it hits you. So we have to be careful, especially the older we get. Take your time. If you're doing something that's possibly going to injure yourself, take your time. And that's walking, that's stepping down off a curve, that's stepping on steps. Make sure that you are in control of what you're doing and don't just reach in there and grab it. Gradually lift. If something starts to hurt, back off. But we can have, muscle tears and ligaments. We can strain muscles, a lot of muscle issues. It could be weight related. You could be, 40 pounds overweight and all of a sudden there's a problem. You could be pregnant and have that extra weight offset from your body. That's a problem. You could have genes that are acting up because your parents or grandparents had this particular kind of problem that was a pain issue. It could be repetitive actions. If I'm sitting there and I'm hoeing and all of a sudden I got a handful of blisters, or I'm trying to pick up something, there's a lot of repetitive actions that can cause pain. A lot of pain is caused just by going to sleep on the wrong surface. You're used to a certain kind of pillow, a certain kind of mattress, and you go on vacation, you come back 2 weeks later, you never got a good night's sleep. The bed was too hard, the pillow wasn't comfortable enough. I take a pillow with me almost everywhere I go when I travel. I just carry it in the car because I have a certain expectation for my pillow, and that's what I want. You get older, pain happens. We have these little nooks and crannies in our bodies that just don't work the same way they used to be. Sometimes they become degenerative. Because of our age, these things are starting to wear out a little bit. You might have pain that could be from a single cause, but it might be multiple causes. You can have actually pain maybe in a fascia down by your ankle or foot that's manifested up in your shoulder because the fascia is that area underneath the muscle, between your muscle and your skin. And it can be pulled in a number of different directions. First time I addressed a problem with my fascia, I was amazed that you have to exercise this area over here and stretch it in order to make the pain go away down there because they're connected, but they don't visually appear to be connected. We have arthritis, primarily something like osteoarthritis. Your autoimmune system has never seen collagen before in its life. It's always been hidden. All of a sudden, it sees collagen and, okay, it's not normal. Let's attack it. So you get your white blood cells go down there. You're getting pain. You're getting redness, inflammation, soreness, heat, all sorts of things because your body doesn't recognize the collagen. Well, there's things you can do about that. That's what I talked about, the type 2 under nature chicken collagen. But arthritis is a similar one, same symptoms, but it's caused not from bone on bone, but from your autoimmune response in your gut. Sometimes we have scar tissue. Sometimes we have neuropathic pain, uh, anxiety, depression, fatigue, lots and lots and lots of different kinds of pain. And somebody's neurotropic pain is not going to be the same as another. Somebody's depression pain, they may not be, they're depressed, but they don't have the pain that goes with it. Somebody's fatigue could debilitate others. Yeah, I'm fatigued, but I can get over it. Lots and lots and lots of different kinds of pain. So we're going to talk about most of these. So how does our pain get communicated? Well, scientists tell us there are basically four modalities that pain comes to our brain. And that pain, primarily number one, is transduction. Something somewhere around the tissue, wherever the nerve ending is at, is damaged. A cut, burn, whatever mechanical option they have. The nerve endings say, oh, I hurt. And that transduction then goes into transmission. You have it at that let's say the fingertip. Now it has to go to the brain in order to be recognized. So that's a transmission. And we'll talk about that a little bit more here in the next slide or two. And then the brain determines, okay, how much of this is really pain? Is it just a momentary thing? Okay, I can, like have my mom kiss it and it goes away, that kind of pain. But then we also have perception in our brain because we have a certain expectation of something hurting or burning or whatever it may be. So we have certain attentions we give to things. I remember closing the car door on my middle finger, and I was home, and I said, let me run inside and grab some of this juice that I talked about earlier. And I'd slammed it pretty good. I really right there on the big part of the knuckle. And I took probably maybe 8 ounces of the juice with the gamma mangosteen. My expectation was no swelling, no heat, no soreness, no redness, nothing. Well, that's exactly what happened. I'm sitting there about an hour later, I'm driving. I can grip pretty well. If I touch my knuckle, it hurt, but didn't hurt badly. But I could actually feel where the injury had occurred, but there was no autoimmune response. The cyclooxygenation 1 enzyme had been abated, had been inhibited. So I was allowing my body to heal itself. The normal things that happen were disrupted, and now the full force of my healing was allowed to happen. So our perception, our expectation all change. We have the transmission. Okay, we talked about the pain. Let's say I burn my fellow, stick myself, whatever. Something happens, and I have microscopic levels of nerves, and they're going to send an electrical signal communication up the nerve fibers called an axon. And these nerve fibers are kind of all come together and they're bundled, and they end up in a peripheral nerve. And then that's transmitted to our spine, gets up our neck, goes into our synapses across to our brain. And it finally gets to that thalamus part of our brain that says, okay, let me figure out what's going on. So the thalamus is kind of a sorting station. The pain comes there, and it's determined, is this really pain? How much time and effort should I give to this? And that's the transmission from the finger to the brain to the recognition and understanding. Yeah, I have a problem. Oh, that's the process that happens. So I start out with nerve fibers, and they vary in size. If I look at the 4 basic kind of nerve fibers, I have an A alpha, and it's basically we kind of feel where we're at. We know when we're out of balance, or spatial awareness. These fibers are 10 to 12, 13 to 30 micrometers. And the speed at which the communication travels is almost 100 meters a second. So, if we're a couple meters tall, boom, it's down there and just lickety split, it's gone. But the next kind of nerve fiber you have, it's called an capital A beta nerve fiber. About half to almost the size of an alpha nerve fiber. It's 6 to 12 micrometers. And the speed, a little less. It goes 35 to 75 meters a second. That's still darn quick. And it's the kind of sensation you get when you touch something. You know immediately you're touching something. Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it prickly? Is it sharp? Whatever it is, you know by the touch that you have something there. So that is the beta nerve fiber. Now we start getting into that first aspect of pain. It's called an A delta nerve fiber. And this is something that gives you a sharp, fast pain. It's temporary. Boom, you back off before you even know you had done something wrong. You touched a hot skillet, whatever it may happen to be. You're already responding before the brain even incorporates that fact into your brain. And these are typically 1 to 5 micrometers. I mean, these are really, really small compared to the other nerve fibers in your body, but you got a lot of them. And the speed with which they travel is a very short distance. It's not going the entire distance because that's what you have the other nerve fibers for, but 5 to 35 meters a second. So in a, let's say on a very slow day, 5 meters a second, maybe something gets to the brain in a half a second, that fast. Then we get into the crux of the matter, the ones that really causes the problem, the C nerve fibers. These are the ones that are really, really small. We're talking basically a micrometer, little less, almost to nothing, to 1.5. They travel at a half to 2 meters a second. So in other words, from, let's say, the end of your arm to your brain, maybe a half a second, maybe a second, sort of in that range. It takes a while. But this is our dull pain. That's sometimes when we have something, yeah, it hurts, and then it takes you a while to react to it. Sometimes it's a temporary pain. Sometimes it's an itch, mosquito bite, whatever it may happen to be. Those are things that are transmitted, but again, they're very, very small fibers. They connect to the next batch, and they get bigger and bigger, and they can zoom right off into the brain. That's the way the pain impulse is electrically communicated to the brain that says, I have a problem. And what are you going to do about it, Houston? Because you got to do something. Okay, gate control theory. There's a number of different theories out there. This one I thought was interesting because it kind of explains why some people have pain and others don't, or some people have a little bit. Something goes by quickly. But in our spine, according to gate control theory, the spine actually acts as a gate. And depending on what your lifestyle is, your mental outlook, a lot of different things, your dorsal spine, they get the input coming up, the communication zapping up to the brain, but the brain never actually gets the pain signals because the spine kind of modulates, regulates that communication up to the brain. Sometimes it actually gets to the brain, and the brain may, okay, I'm really busy fighting this fire over here right now. I can't take care of that. Sometimes you see people who, maybe in war, they're shot and they manage to, pick people up and get them to a helicopter. And any other time they'd be laying on the ground in so much pain. But the brain can prioritize those kinds of things and give you amazing strength. When everything's over, you start feeling everything flooding into you. So just because you have something happen doesn't necessarily mean it's going to get there in full force instantly. It may get there. It may get there modulated. It may get there eventually. And the brain may or may not actually want to recognize right now what's wrong. Our brains look at pain in a variety of ways. If I had the same pain over and over again because I'm doing something, yeah, I expect it's going to happen, and I just get over it. I know that I can deal with this. Other people have never had that pain, and the pain affects them differently. Sometimes I know I'm going to have a pain if I do this, but I don't know where it's coming from. I know I have it. I can't find it. Well, take headache, for instance. I know that it's there. Is it caused by my neck? Is it caused by my eyes? Is it caused by something else in my body? Sometimes we have heart attacks, but it's manifested as pain in the shoulder, in the arm. So I have pain that's not always where the source of the pain is at. And so that transmission is bypassed, interspersed with something else. And sometimes our pain can be interpreted. Cultures expect people to endure pain differently. And when we have that expectation, it changes our brain's ability to process that. Men and women feel pain differently. We have some belief systems that, yeah, I can live through that. I can take care of that pain. It's not a big deal. So, as I said about confusion, one size does not fit all. I have a couple of different kinds of pain types. They call Neosioceptive. And this is when we have injury to body tissues. Let's say that I hit my hand in a door. It might be a cut, it might be a burn, it might be a mechanical thing, fracture. It could be even a post-operative surgery. If I go out and run, I haven't run for a long time. My large muscles of my legs will really start throbbing in about 72 hours. A lot of things can happen after the fact. I get that aching, I get that sharp throbbing pain. And sometimes it's just continual, it's just constant. And sometimes if I sit down, I'm fine until I stand up. So it might be a positional thing that if I hold my neck that way, it hurts. If I hold it this way, I don't. It can be intermittent, but that's the nociceptive pain. I have what's called neuropathic pain. This is pain that's really relegated to the nerve channel itself. This is where we get our burning, our tingling, our shooting, electric pain. If you have shingles, I had shingles when I was treating my wife with breast cancer. I went out and worked around the pool for a couple of days, got severe sunburn. I ended up with the shingles, and it was just one of those itching things that just would not go away no matter what I did. Sometimes we're more sensitive to pain with cold than touch. If I get a mosquito bite, I can put really hot water on it, boom, that pain goes away instantly. Sometimes ice will make pain go away, which is why they say rest, the rice, RISC. There's a way that you treat certain kinds of pain with rest, with ice, with heat in certain areas. We have nerve damage that can be from a physical injury that might be the potential cause of something. But the neuropathic part of it, because it's so extended in so many different areas, very, very hard to pinpoint it down. We get synaptic issues. Sometimes they're not interpreted properly. Sometimes we overload our nerves so much that they can't function. Recently, I'm going to say probably 6 months ago, I came across this particular compound in the body. It's called palmitoylic ethanolamide, PEA for short. So PEA. This is almost like a cannabinol. It's a molecule that's a mirror image of a cannabinol, but our bodies make it. We've made it all our lives. There's no side effects from it because we make it, but it's very, very good pain reliever. You can buy it in a pill form. You can buy it from the over the counter in the store, Google. But this palmitoyl ethanolamide is a really, really, really good neuropathic painkiller, just like taking aspirin, except it works on the neurons, the neuropathic pain. So we'll talk more about that later too. I can have psychogenic pain, something that I envision in my brain is a pain, but it's more mental than physical. And that's a real life pain. The pain's there, but it's just not caused by a physical manifestation. And sometimes the degree of a disability is far out of proportion. In other words, I may just have a very slight inflammation, swelling, but it just hurts like the dickens. And other times it could be swollen up the whole 4 or 5 joints, and I don't really have much pain there at all. It's uncomfortable. I can't grip anything. So we have problems with the degree of disability that's out of proportion to an injury. And these are different kinds. We have psychological complications that are there, and that may be cultural, it may be something learned, but our brains, our neuronic processes, all of these things kind of interweave, and sometimes they work perfectly, and you can take that pill and boom, it's gone. And other times you can take 10 pills and it will not go away. So pain management, we're definitely going to get into. You have things called acute and chronic. Acute is something very short-lived. It's usually resolved. Injury goes away, pain goes away. But chronic is something that just lasts. Even after the injury is healed, it just stays there forever. An example is osteoarthritis. You have bone on bone. Yeah, whatever caused the problem is gone, but now you have bone on bone that's causing problems, and they classify it as arthritis. And it can exist forever because your body doesn't recognize that collagen as part of the body. It recognizes it as an invader, and it's going to keep treating it as an invader as long as you live. And then sometimes we just have our nerve functions that go awry. They're just not functioning properly. We see a lot of that in Alzheimer's, where you have issues there that something disrupts something else. You expect that to work, and it's not working the way it should be. So just because part of your body's working well doesn't mean the whole body's working well. So overall, there's many causes, there's many processes involved. Everybody has different levels of sensitivity to pain, and the solutions may or may not work the same for everyone. But we're going to explore them together. We're going to find out what's worked for some people, what hasn't, what might work for you, what is cheap, easy, doesn't cost you anything but your time, something you can do by yourself, and maybe something, I really need to talk to your doctor. And that's kind of where we're going to leave things here today. So I can be reached at redolaughlin.com. That's RedOLaughlin.com. And red at redolaughlin.com or red.olaughlin@gmail.com. Those are my primary ways to reach me. I have several books out available on Amazon. No matter what, you can do it. You're talking to your subconscious mind. That thing controls 95, 98% of everything you do. The Joy of Ageless Health talks about the causes of disease and what you can do at the cellular level in the body to address those causes. Longevity Secrets for Healthy Aging addresses, to me, the two primary causes of aging: your human growth hormone and your telomere length, and what you can do to accelerate aging or decelerate aging. During COVID, I compiled over 40 articles I had written prior to COVID and during COVID. I put them in a book called Understanding the Causes of Alzheimer's. And a lot of that's fairly current, up to date, what's causing Alzheimer's more than just the plaque in the brain. And then a couple of months ago, I came out with the Essential New Author's Guide, essentially how to write and publish your book for free. There's just so many easy ways to do things nowadays. I help people with their books. The book there will tell you exactly the same thing I would tell you over a phone call or a Zoom meeting. But if it's something you can do, go for it. Publish your book, write it for free. But if you need some help, give me a call. And with that, we're going to conclude today's session on Talking Heads on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. And next week, we're going to pick up with part 2 on pain. And let's explore this together and figure out what can work for us and what makes sense. So with that, I'll catch you all next week. Goodbye and have a wonderful time. Take care. Bye now.
I just can't take it anymore. I am so tired. I am so frustrated and burnt out. Why won't anyone listen to what I have to say? Yet I look on social media and everybody's smiling and having a great time. Meanwhile, I feel totally alone with my world rushing by. Guess what? Great news. You have a choice. You can change the dynamic by learning how to listen at an elevated level yourself through the power of listening educational courses. Can you imagine from where you are today to having a life overflowing with abundance? It's possible. Learn how to listen at an elevated level. You'll have deeper connections, better relationships, and more authentic conversations. Start today. Go to usaglobaltv.com, education, and learn how to listen. We have courses and children's books. Let's work together to learn how to listen.
When we speak, we don't hear. It's abundantly clear. Listening lace is creeping, and nobody's gonna win. Look someone in the eye. If you don't, they surely will cry. You don't hear a word I say, 'cause you always look straight away. Listening laces drive people crazy. Listening laces making us blue. Listening laces, communication goes hazy. Listening laces, listening laces. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Listening laces drive people crazy. Listening laces making us blue. Listening laces, communication goes hazy. Listening laces, listening laces. When you interrupt your friend, you will surely have to make amends. Lady Ella knows the way to help you listen better every day. And what's that? It's listening lazy. Ba-da-ba-ba. Listening laces drive people crazy. Listening laces making us blue. Listening laces, communication goes hazy. Listening laces, listening laces. Listening laces drive people crazy. Listening laces making us blue. Listening laces, communication goes hazy. Listening laces, listening laces, listening laces.
Hello, everyone. Hello and welcome. My name is Roland Friedl, and maybe as you can recognize from my accent, I'm Austrian, so it's a small country in the middle of Europe, in the heart of Europe. And yeah, I'm 59 years old. I'm a father and a grandfather. And from my business background, after my very short but very successful corporate career, I was the youngest member of board of director in a huge business, in a huge company. I started my own businesses in different areas, in different industries, and I got a lot of experience, what is working, what is not working. And about 2.5 decades ago, I started a training, coaching, consulting company, Spartan Performance Systems, where I did and still do train and consult international huge businesses worldwide like Xerox and other big players in the world. So we do a lot of sales trainings and management trainings with my team in different languages. That's my main background in business. Besides that, I'm very engaged in men's work and also in the environment. That's my background, make it short. So to be honest, I'm very curious about what's going on in the world. I love to learn. I love to travel. So my huge passion is traveling. Right now, as you can see the background, I'm sitting in my motorhome. So after 14 years living on a beautiful island, I decided to move into my motorhome and travel Europe and live and work from my motorhome. So, and I got engaged to USA Global TV and Radio actually a year and around 9-10 months ago. A very good friend of mine, he contacted me and asked me if he can invite me for an interview in USA Global TV and Radio. I guess the show was called The Journey of My Life. And to be honest, in the beginning, I said no, because I had very bad experience on interviews in my business careers. I did it twice for a TV channel in Austria. And then they cut it and edited it. And at the end, my comment was totally different than to the reality I said. So I said in the beginning, no, but I trusted this guy. So they said, okay, let's do it. He told me I don't have to fly to the US. I can do it from my home. That was, at the time, this was his island in Mallorca. So, and it was an amazing, and a beautiful conversation. And then Dr. Jacqueline contacted me and asked me if I'm interested in becoming a co-moderator of a show. And so we started the Mallorca Connection, which is a weekly show on Monday, the Mallorca Connection. I got more and more involved. I became an elevated listener because I strongly believe it's important to listen first before you talk. And I had the chance to host and moderate and design my own shows like the Earth Show in the past, the Men shows. I became a talking head, an expert on business topics. So I hosted, moderated, I guess about more than 100, maybe 200, I have no idea, shows on USA Global TV and Radio, and I still do. And finally, we started the It's Your Healthy Lifestyle, a very good show, and we bring a new one on about the planet Earth. Yeah, that's a little bit what I'm doing here on USA Global TV and Radio. So why I'm doing this? First of all, I really love new medias. I love the platform. I love the work that this Dr. Jacqueline is doing to educate people. It's all about sharing, caring, and connecting and networking. And the benefit I got out of this in my personal experience, I learned a lot about myself, to be honest. I learned a lot about my strengths in moderating, in hosting, in talking live in front of a video camera. I learned a lot of myself, where are my strengths, where are my weak points that I have to improve. I met a lot of new interesting people. Some of them became friends of mine. Actually, after all, it's a hell of work, to be sure. Yes, it is, to be prepared, to invite people for the shows, to find new topics, to do research on the facts. But I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about the industry, the media industry. I learned a lot about broadcasting, videos, interviewing. And as I said, I met interesting people, a lot of interesting people, and also made new friends where I'm very happy for that. So yeah, USA Global TV and Radio, it's the platform to connect. It's about sharing and caring. And for me, USA Global TV and Radio is a huge family, and I'm very thankful and grateful for this experience. And yeah, and I guess the best is yet to come. Thanks a lot from Roland from Austria. Thank you. Bye.